My name is Louis Braxton III. I am the Director of Center Operations here at NASA Ames Research Center. I've been tasked with the responsibility to sponsor and put on Yuri's Night for Ames Research Center. That was identified by my Center Director, who's Dr. Pete Warden. He used to be a Brigadier General in the Air Force. He came in about a couple of years ago, established as our Center Director. As a result, he had new ideas and new visions about how we were going to make space cool again, as he would put it. And he brought in what I like to call them the McNamara kids. He kind of brought in a bunch of young individuals that meet with him on a weekly basis to invigorate his mind and thought process and how we go about getting the population at large, primarily starting with the United States, but I think really the world as a whole. How do we make space cool again so we can make sure that we can someday, as he put it, settle the universe? So the effort that we put forth was started actually last year. NASA decided under his guidance to get involved in a quest called Yuri's Night, which is basically celebrating the Russian astronaut who first went into space and connecting that with the fact that it happened to be the day that he went into space was also the same day that we launched our first shuttle mission. Now, the problem we have within the agency, and a certain segment of the agency realizes that in order for us to explore space, in order for us to settle in space, we need to start making sure we hand off to a younger generation. It is really clear that the people that work within our agency today are getting up there. The average age at this particular facility in itself is about 51 years in age. So if we're going to get into these long space flight missions, we need to start bringing in younger blood. We need to start encouraging those people who will be our future to understand what it takes to sustain such an effort. And that's where Yuri's Night comes into play. We realize the way we learned in the past, whether it's through a book, whether it's through television, whether it was through 3 networks, doesn't quite reach that generation today. So we got to find other ways, to get the message out. And Yuri's Night was our effort to get the message out. So we did this last year at a smaller scale. We brought in similar acts. It's a combination of making sure we have science, presentations, music, art, what it took to try to capture as many young minds as possible to come out and see what we have to do. It also took a lot on our part. We needed to open up and understand that we no longer need to be a closed entity or a closed society. We need to be more transparent. We need to make sure that people understand that, hey, there's something of value here, something that's enriching, that is necessary to sustain. So Yuri Night was involved. It was a very, very interesting process a year ago because basically you saw classic generation conflict. You had your 50-year-olds talking about how we need to be very, very concerned and very, very understanding of how to make sure something doesn't go wrong. And then you had the young minds who came in and says, what are you worrying about? This is no big deal. Why do we need to document things? And it was a very interesting struggle for that first period of time to see our 20-year-olds and our 50-year-olds put this package together. We learned from that, and it was really tough. For the most part, this center was not all that behind it. Remember, Pete Warden was our center director for less than a year. As I stated before, the legacy of our centers in their 50s, and they couldn't see why are we doing this. They thought of it as a folly, and there were many people out there that thought it wouldn't be successful. Well, it was successful last year. It made all the wires, the non-traditional media modes that we are aware of. We got great print. People were sharing things with me that went around the world. We understood that the Chinese government indirectly was stating that, hey, look at what NASA's doing out there, look what the United States is doing. We got to figure out how to pattern our space program. Similar to that, we got comments from Eastern Europe, we got comments from Europe, that through the internet, just listening to the chat rooms and stuff going on, it says that we did something. Now, we realized it was just a sample, just a smitten of what possibly can happen. So we digested that, figured out what we did kind of wrong last year, understood the risks we were getting involved with. This year we came up, if you want to, Yuri's Night 2. And it's basically dealing with sustainability, technology that figures out how we sustain life cycles as far as environmental activities in outer space. So here we are. We came up with these multi-platforms. We have 4 stages trying to hit a more diverse audience. Last year we realized that we didn't hit a very diverse audience. This year we came up with different music, different acts, different displays, so we could hit a cross-cutting effort within this country. We think we've been pretty successful. Last year, Yuri's Night was targeting close to 3,500 people. This year, we were trying to target up to 8,000 people. Didn't quite get there. The last numbers I heard, it looks like we're going to probably be around 6,000 paying customers. But still, we know that we were trying to make something that was very accessible to the young. I brought my son here, and I couldn't believe it. He's having a great time, and I know that he's more attentive tonight being involved with these particular acts, stage events, and things of this nature than he would be in the classroom. That is real clear. So we know we have something. We haven't quite figured out how to totally encapsulate it, but we know we have something. We know we're getting a lot of attention. Now, the next question is going to be, how do we measure this? How do we keep the people inspired? How do we keep them coming? How do we make sure that when they go out, they spawn this knowledge out to others of why this is an important venture to continue? So we feel pretty happy about it. The night is still young. We got another 6-7 hours to go before it closes out, but it has been very, very successful up to this point in time. Okay. Next year, if this works out, I think this is going to span out between all the NASA centers. There are NASA officials here. We brought them out here deliberately. This is what Pete wanted to do. Hey, they saw the positive press last year. We wanted to come and kick the tires. We wanted to come and understand what it took to do something like this. And the effort and planning for this type of event is not much different than many of our missions. I started planning for this night back in October, and we have to deal with every aspect that you would think you would have to deal with from an infrastructure point of view. Whether you have the right fire protection, whether you have the right emergency service, do you have the right communication, what is going to be the acoustics, what's the environmental, what's the endangered species we have to make sure we're concerned with out here. And we do have protected species, not necessarily endangered, but protected species that we had to be concerned with. How do we deal with the disabled? How do we make sure to have easy access? All that you expect that a country like ours would demand of you, we have to take that in consideration. So it's a large effort that culminates for this one night to try to make sure that we put our best foot forward and the transparency that we want to make sure that the young folk around here can see within this agency. We're just 1 center out of 10, but we're hoping that we're paving the way. We're hoping that the emissaries that came out here from headquarters go back and spread the message, and probably going to see this spread through the other centers if we do a good job. That's the bottom line.